Hello friends, we're here today in the book of Jude. So this is Jude chapter 1. There's only one chapter in the book of Jude. So the book of Jude to me wins 2 awards. I know that this is the second to last book of the Bible, but here we are. And it wins the award for me as the most poetic book of the Bible. I love how it's written. It's so fun to read. So it only takes a couple minutes to read it. So I encourage anybody watching this to just read the book. You know, my explanation for it doesn't do it justice because of how well it's written. The second is it's the most relevant. I don't think anything speaks to our culture as well as the book of Jude. And this is the reason why. You know, in other cultures that maybe Paul is writing to, or Peter, or John, a lot of times he's writing to new churches, or he's writing because there's Judaizers, or there's other heresies that are taking over the church in different ways. But this is speaking to our heresy, and that is that people understand God. They know who God is. You know, at least you know where I come from, in this culture that you see around me, people know who Jesus is. And they even claim to like him. But what they do is they know that Jesus is all about forgiveness, the forgiveness of sins. And yet they take that and they make it the ultimate part of why Jesus came. And so they abuse it. You know, people in my culture, as well as the culture that Jude was talking to, they see God's forgiveness as a way to say that they can just do whatever they want. And Jude is here saying if that's the way you're treating it, then you don't understand the gospel. And so he's telling us here, contend for the faith. Now, the culture that Jude was speaking to was to a Jewish audience, an audience that knew God from the beginning. And they had left Judaism to be part of Christianity, but they believed that because of the grace that we've been given, they can just go on sinning. But they didn't have repentant hearts. Their hearts weren't turning toward God. And so he's saying here, contend for the faith. And he's using these examples, using a lot of examples from the Old Testament, and even some apocryphal, like things from the book of Enoch or the book of Moses. He's saying when God led you out of Egypt, you know, the Jewish people, when he led them out of Egypt, you know, some of the people that were led out ended up dying because of judgment that they gave him. You know, just because he led all the people out of Egypt didn't mean that they were all going to the promised land, which is a perfect picture of us and our relationship with God. You know, just because we live in the time where Jesus has died for all doesn't mean that all will accept the grace. But then he also talks about the people in Sodom and Gomorrah. He's talking about the people in Korah's rebellion. He's talking about different places where God judges the people for not having faith, for not really having a relationship with God. Jude has a simple message here. The simple message is that God is love, but he's also judging. You know, there's justice for those who don't want a relationship with God. And here I want to make a couple points. One is that just because you grew up in the church doesn't mean that you are in. You know, the writer of this book was the brother of Jesus, and he did not believe in him in the beginning. You know, he was not in, even though he was one of the brothers. There's a part in the book of there's a part in the book of Mark where the brothers were on the outside with Mary, and they were knocking on the door, and they said that Jesus was insane, and he said, look, who are my brothers? Who is my mother? And he's like, is it not the people that are in here with me? And yet later on, we have here the words of Jude, you know, the half brother of Jesus, you know, the full brother of James. And he's pleading for the people. I want you to be in. I want you to be one of the people that's on the inside. I don't want you to feel like I felt that day when I was criticizing my Lord. And it's interesting, even though that he was the brother of Jesus, someone that saw Jesus all the time, that lived with him, grew up with the same parents, he calls himself his servant. The language in the Greek is actually more strong. He says, I'm his slave. The word is doulos, so it means something different, but essentially that's what it means. It's a full lifetime slave, someone who has freely given their life to serve someone else. And so those people, the people that he's talking to, the people that are abusing the grace of God, he's saying these people are, and I love the pictures that he uses. He says they're shepherds who feed themselves. Like a useless shepherd doesn't even feed the sheep. They just feed themselves. He says they're like clouds without any rain. He uses a whole bunch of them, but some of them are just really, really great metaphors. At the end, he says they're like roaming stars. They're like stars that are just doomed to be in the gloom of outer darkness for forever. And he's saying there's going to be judgment. So Jude ends this book with a doxology. Some people say it's the most beautiful doxology in the Bible, and I agree. But the way that he starts it, he says, "To him who is able to keep you from stumbling." And he's pointing everybody back to God. He's saying there's these bad people that you need to stay away from. You need to contend for the faith on behalf of God. You need to fight for your faith. You need to stay away from these people. But to him who is able to keep you from stumbling, he's talking about God. May he bless you with essentially everything you need to live the life of faith that you were meant to live. We live in a culture where people abuse the grace of God constantly. Most people that you would talk to today would say that they're going to heaven, and most of them do not have a relationship with God. And there is a judgment for those people. So that is the book of Jude. Have a great day.